This resulted in me reviewing and ranking a grand total of 100 songs for my 500 subscribers special. I made the promise that I would do this again for my 1,000 subscriber milestone, but this bitch is impatient. Help me get to 800 subscribers, and you'll have a chance to have a song of your choosing be reviewed by yours truly in yet another subscriber special. In retrospect, I probably should have just been a patient bitch. Oh well, nobody's perfect. So I'm gonna make this pretty quick because I have 100 songs to talk about. For those who don't know, this video is to commemorate my 800 subscriber milestone and is essentially a repeat of my 500 subscriber milestone from a few months back. I asked my 800 and some subscribers to request some songs for me to review. I chose the top 100 based off of votes, and in the remainder of this video, I will be reviewing and ranking these songs based off of these tiers. Before I start, I just want to thank everybody who has helped me reach not just the 800 subscriber milestone, but also the even more exciting 1,000 subscriber milestone. I gotta admit, I'm not the most consistent uploader, but I do have a lot of pride in the videos that I do make, and it's really gratifying to see that even a few people are legitimately interested in these, and 800 to 1,000 people, even more so. In my own personal opinion, the selection here ended up being a vast upgrade from my 500 subscriber special, which already was really good. So let's not waste any more time and get on with the show, starting with the very bottom of the barrel. Something tells me that even if I did understand any of the context behind this, I would still hate it just as much. Doug Walker was never funny. There's absolutely nothing of substance in this song to note upon, and as a matter of fact, I hated myself every single second I listened to it. Queen doesn't deserve this defamation, and I wish this didn't exist. Fuck off. As someone who loves Christmas and probably has a greater tolerance for all the holiday music that plays ad nauseum each and every year, this is some truly wretched stuff. Every second, every production decision of the song is so poorly thought out and even more terribly aged, it actually gives me migraines every time I listen to it. Future editing Lyzette? I'm so sorry. Future premiere attendee Lyzette? I'm also really sorry. Paul McCartney? Yeah, you've done better. This song has only existed for a few months, and it has already become a running joke between me and my partner, and sometimes we'll put it on for the sole purpose of laughing at how loud and awkward and cringe it is. Pure comedy gold. But seriously, Imagine Dragons can go ahead and stop making music now. It's clear that there's no way they're topping this contribution to the scene. I say, I gotta say, I really hate shit like this. Those ironic covers of upbeat songs that are meant to make them more explicitly sad and morose and stuff. Those sad boy covers of Mad World, Dancing on My Own, Heartbeats. I hate them all. And this one falls in that exact same camp. It has nothing to offer on its own merits, as the acoustic instrumental and the singer's delivery are both boring as hell. So it banks on the pure recognizability of the song, which only illuminates how empty and pointless the entire track is without all the production elements that make the original so interesting. It's annoying coffee shop core, and yeah, fucking terrible. Let's kill this already dead genre for good, please. I got a new truck, I got a new ride, I got it souped up. Mom, can I have some Old Town Road? No, son, we have Old Town Road at home. Old Town Road at home? Seriously though, as much as I want to fully shit tier this one, it's essentially a love song to a truck, and I kinda commend just how much it leans into this obvious ridiculousness. Also, this line is just gold.
Still got the blue truck, the one that I've been had.
The longer I think about it, the funnier it gets.
So I hit up.
So, this sure is pre-Hot 100 Calvin Harris, ain't it? Talk about a song with a title that promises so much and delivers absolutely none of it. I seriously have no clue what this song is about, but I can't even be distracted by a good instrumental, as this one is a certain kind of repetitive I find extremely annoying. Harris was never a singer, but he is extremely not a singer in this one. Just an utter waste of a song, certainly not acceptable in any decade.
1, 2, 3, 4. Reese's Puffs, eat 'em up, beat 'em up.
This person asked me to review this rap from an old Reese's Puffs ad for some reason, so here we are. It's a pretty standard imitation of 2000s era party rap, and while these performers work at just bare minimum and it's all about as corporatized and easy to swallow as you can imagine, the guitar riff that comes in halfway at least adds a little extra weight to the sound. At that point, the song is an extremely mild banger, but then it's over before anything more interesting could be done to this concept, so whatever, it's commercial music. Reese's Puffs are a terrible cereal, by the way.
Accommodations on time.
Well, that's a whole lot of hype for a song that ended up being not very good. For those who aren't aware, this song appeared on Billboard's Bubbling Under chart for 3 weeks back in 1979, though for the longest time, there was no proof that the song had ever actually existed until 2016 when it finally resurfaced. Not much else to say beyond this interesting bit of trivia though. This is just generic boogie-woogie rock and roll that is honestly a bit aggravating and goes on for way longer than welcomed. I guess it's worth a listen if you're curious. I just can't imagine this being anyone's favorite song, is all I'm saying. While I was a pretty avid watcher of PBS Kids in my childhood, Cyber Chase came way after my time, so I have no nostalgic feelings about this theme versus, say, the theme to Zoom or Magic School Bus. I just really don't know what to do with this one. The singer does a good job at setting the mood and story, and she's certainly very talented, but the song itself feels very sloppy and uneven, and I can't imagine this ever getting me excited for the show about to unfold. It just meanders for a bit and then finishes. Outside of the vocal performance, it's nothing notable at all. Moving on now.
Fish heads, roly-poly fish heads, fish.
You know, as a fan of The Residents, I somehow feel I don't have any right to dismiss this as being too weird or whatever. You can thank Dr. Demento's radio show for bringing this gem to prominence, as well as MTV, who actually had this music video on regular rotation? Huh. Anyway, as bafflingly inane as the song is on the surface, I gotta admit that there's something oddly hypnotic about this childish repetition. It's unsettling in ways I can't quite pinpoint, but also a bit fascinating, for reasons I also can't explain. I listened to it 4 times in a row while writing this segment, which may have been 4 times too many, but I'll let you be the judge of that one. Honestly, if this was the only one of its kind to have existed back in those $3.99 ringtone glory days, I think I would have enjoyed it. I mean, it's really nothing more than a pumped-up Eurodance cover of that one riff from Beverly Hills Cop, with high-pitched gibberish noises thrown in for some reason. Removed from any additional context, and, well, okay, I'll say it, it kinda slaps. For this alone, I'd say that Crazy Frog has earned the right to exist. Unfortunately, we also have to deal with the aftermath of his obnoxious cousins, so meh tier it is.
Are you gonna stay the night?
Everything good about the song is solely thanks to Hayley Williams, who has such a great voice. On the flip side, everything else on this song is pretty much exactly what I've grown so tired of hearing from Zedd over the years. Predictable build-ups, anticlimactic drops, that goddamn ticking clock. Doesn't help that I'm pretty apathetic about most mainstream EDM anyway. Hayley is always awesome though, so yay for her. This song is cute. Nothing particularly exciting, certainly in comparison to the breadth of work that Gwen Stefani has accumulated through her decades of music making. The production is pleasant enough, and Gwen's performance is passable, if a bit dry and a tad incomprehensible. Honestly though, it just feels good to hear her so happy on a track like this. She may have outgrown No Doubt, as well as her Lamb days, but she's doing her own thing, and that's okay. Yeah, okay is a good descriptor for this, I think. So I really love Arctic Monkeys. Well, at least up until their 2009 work. I could never get into their stuff from that point onward, and this song is no exception. I'm almost tempted to really swoon for that thick bluesy groove, but after some time, I mainly just find it kind of lackluster. There's exactly one good part of the song. Right there. That note progression is really pleasant to my ears. Otherwise, this just sounds like they're biting way too much off of the Black Keys for my liking. Big pass. I guess this one is kinda nice, with that fluttery guitar riff and the melodic chorus, but, well, I didn't think much of it back when it was in heavy rotation, and I still don't think too much of it now. Tropical house in general is hard for me to really get into. It just lies in a certain mode of chill that I don't particularly find compelling, and this to me is just another song in that vein. Sorry.
If I gave you all my love, I say, would that make you happy, baby? Would.
I can't say I've been keeping up with the career of YBN Namir much, but I will say that I still give Rubbin' Off the Paint frequent replays all the way to the present day. This song has some nice retro R&B production to it, and, well, that's pretty much the most notable thing here. YBN Namir does some singing over it, but his vocals lie too much on tuneless warbling for me to enjoy it much. It's not a pleasant song, just not what I turn to the Rubbin' Off the Paint guy for in particular. Let's move on. Well, this was unexpected. Can't say I've ever even heard Odessa prior to setting up this video, and judging by this song, yeah, honestly not too sure if I'm captivated. It's obvious she's got talent behind the mic, and that glassy beat is pretty cool. But in terms of content, I'm not really sure if I'm buying what's going on here. Maybe I need to listen to it a few more times, or maybe I need to branch out into Dessa's other stuff. But this feels a bit too corny for me to totally vibe with. I don't know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, so feel free to enlighten me. I mentioned in my 500 subscriber special that I wanted to check out some more MNEK, and, well, this isn't really what I had in mind. Don't get me wrong, this is a perfectly decent club song, and that hook in the chorus is particularly catchy, but it doesn't give me much more to grasp onto besides some generic house motifs. This ain't bad, I just tend to forget all about it once the timer runs out. I'm sure MNEK is capable of much better.
They're coming to take me away, haha, they're coming to take me away, ho ho.
Are there any stranger songs to have hit the top 3 on Billboard? Somehow, I doubt it. The spare-thudding percussion on this one is really unsettling, and Jerry Samuels' forceful spoken word vocalizations only adds to the utter strangeness of it all. It's obviously not one that I could just put on at any time, and yes, the farcical depiction of mental illness is definitely antiquated and problematic. But there's something to admire about the artist's peculiar vision and even kookier delivery. Easily one of the weirdest recordings to come out of 1966. Two more Rina Sawayama tracks were given to me this time, and yeah, about this placement. As much as I have the utmost appreciation for Sawayama's place in the pop music landscape, I must admit that her album from last year was underwhelming. Same goes for this song. Honestly, really strange that this was pushed as a single. Compared to her much more vibrant stuff, this feels limp and mostly uninteresting. The hook doesn't have nearly as much emotional pull as it should, and honestly, I don't like that synthesized voice. It's not a world ender, more boring than anything else, but it's still Rina, and it's pretty nice to hear her on a track regardless of all that. So sure, passable it is. Sweetener was a pretty cute album. A tad uneven by Ari standards, but still perfectly listenable and, yeah, cute. With that said, I never liked Successful quite as much as I think I probably should. The eccentric musical backdrop is the coolest part here, even if the heavy breathing samples get on my nerves after some time. Ariana sounds pleasant, but there's also a good amount of holdback on her part, which is often one of the most frustrating aspects of her R&B songs. Nonetheless, I've never had a totally bad time listening to it, and its empowerment message is at least admirable. So yeah, I'll take this. And now for a song from a singer I was literally named after. Seriously, ask my mom. Anyway, I have a bigger soft spot for the 80s and 90s freestyle scene than most, but this is not one of the interesting ones. Honestly, this just sounds like a weaker version of Together Forever, a song from Melendez I actually really like and wish I was talking about instead. It's not a new concept for dance music to recycle beats from song to song, but it's just a little too distracting in this instance. Still pretty decent stuff though.
I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past.
Oh, I remember this one. It honestly sounds kind of better now that it's long out of regular radio rotation. The beat is nice and solid, and this chorus is summery, bouncy, and really sticks. Still, it does feel like the verses are a bit too sparse for their own good, as well as Larson herself not being a very interesting singer. I could see the song really popping if it had some more meat on its bones, but as it stands, meh. Having grown up in Southern California and been to quite a few Dodgers games in my day, I'm pretty familiar with this one. Randy Newman has made quite a name for himself with his signature biting sarcasm spread throughout several decades worth of material. And even if I'm not a fan of this dated instrumental, this gets a passing grade through this strong, sharp sardonicism. Nonetheless, God, I'll be so happy if I never listen to this song ever again in my life. Sorry, Randy, but overplay has just about killed this one dead for me. Okay, so there are certain elements of the song that I've always gravitated toward through the years. The concept of this being a story told almost entirely through letters is a good one, and the heavy interpolation of Thank You by Dido is really inspired. Nonetheless, well, I've said this many times before, but Eminem is just not for me. There's a strong point to be made here about the danger of celebrity culture on common folks, but, well, there are more nuanced ways to make this point than the gratuitous direction taken here. I can totally see why this is one of M's most praised tracks, but, well, it's mostly just not for me.
I wrote it on the starter cap.
Oh, the rich people want what the poor people got, and the poor people...
Ah, yes. This one. It feels a bit wrong that my coverage of the Shags is purely focused on this, the intro song from their only album. I recommend you look up the story behind this record because everything about it is just plain bonkers. By all definitions of the word, their songs and performance of such are so obviously amateurish. But just as the work of Ed Wood Jr. captured a special kind of art through utter incompetence, such is the case with the Shags. From the off-tempo drum patterns, to the kitschy lyricism, to the monotone delivery, Philosophy of the World plainly defies everything we know about good taste in popular music, and I kinda really dig that. Hey, if y'all are allowed to praise Trout Mask Replica to high heavens, I can have this one. And now for the first of two tracks featuring Rosalia in this video. Maybe I'm just out of touch, but I don't think I've ever listened to a James Blake song that really blew me away in any substantial way. Barefoot in the Park comes from his 2019 album Assume Form, a project I found pretty mediocre. And while I do remember enjoying this track, it also has a bag of air quality that I tend to find very frustrating about minimalist electronic artists like these. Even Rosalia sounds super watered down, and I usually really love the airy qualities of her voice. This is a song I tend to find nice enough while listening, though completely forget about as soon as I'm done with it. Like now. Eh. As much as I'm not completely warmed up to Kesha's early electropop work, there's also no denying that much of it has aged surprisingly well over the last decade or so. Take It Off is no exception. It's a bloated hedonistic mess that incorporates the Snake Charmer riff in ways that should be completely awkward and bad. But, actually, yeah, this kind of rules. It's loud, stilted, and oh so silly, which is often exactly what you need during one of those crazy drunken nights out in the club. So, yeah, I'll commend you for this one, Kesha.
Welcome to the best news.
There are some cool vibes here at the start, with the spoken word over that instrumental, and especially when that saxophone comes in. Overall, though, I don't think I completely get this one, as much as I'd like to. There's something a bit hypnotizing about this vocalist's anxious delivery that I find a bit neat. But otherwise, I'd rather just keep listening to Slint for this kind of mood. I am interested in checking out their latest album though, so I suppose I'll do that soon.
Driving out into the sun, let the old truth.
As much as I support and appreciate her place in the modern indie rock scene, I really wish I liked Phoebe Bridgers a lot more than I do. I know the end has a lot of cool parts to it, but it's never gelled into a cohesive, emotionally effective end product for me. It mostly reminds me of an average level Sufjan Stevens song, another artist I've never really loved as much as everyone else seems to. Maybe I can chalk it up to taste, maybe I just need to listen to it a few more times. Or maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Whatever. This is fine. Now here's a song that I'm pretty confident everyone here has heard at least once in their lives. So, can I be real with y'all? This instrumental is kinda good. Hence the tier placement. But I don't mean that for the sake of irony or meme or anything. I've just never listened to the full 2 minutes and 16 seconds of this track until preparing for this special. And every listen, I've just felt so much at peace, like I was drifting on a cloud, up and away from all worries and stresses of the world. Compositionally, sure, it's hella basic, but goddammit, you could have far worse YouTube Premiere music, so sure, I'll take it. As huge as I know they are, I've never been all that into Little Mix. Probably just not my particular flavor of girl group. This one, though, is pretty nice, with an earworm of a melody at the hook. And as weak as the verses are, the vibrancy of that chorus sails towards the heavens in ways that other songs would be envious of. That's probably the best outcome I'll take from this song, which is pretty good considering this genre is generally not my thing. So yeah, nice work, Little Mix. Well, one thing's for certain. I definitely would have loved this if it had come out when I was in high school. This was my first time discovering Black Dress's work, and as much as I really want to love this, it might not be entirely for me. The crunchy guitars at the start are awesome, as are the more melodic parts of the song. But once it goes off the rails with those guttural screams and glitchy production, I lose interest fast. I'm definitely interested in checking out more of this group's work, but yeah, not too sure about this one personally. Sorry.
Some kind of nature, some kind of soul.
Another subscriber special video, another Gorillaz song. I've come to have an ever-growing respect for Gorillaz' work, particularly those with featured collaborators. This specific song is a bit meandering and limp, but it does feature Lou Reed, who has one of my favorite voices in all of recorded music. Even though it's not one of my personal favorites, it's undoubtedly well produced, and it's also just nice hearing Reed's voice so late in his life. So, the song will have my respect for that at least.
I would like to reach out my hand. Oh, Messiah.
Here it is, the one song that every single millennial knows, though only like 60% of us could recognize by name. These are indeed the two genders. These pastoral guitars are immensely nostalgic, and the sunny vibe is so pleasant. Nonetheless, I tend to stop caring about this one around the halfway point, and I kind of blame this lead vocalist, as he's not the most charismatic performer. Still, it's not hard to smile at least a little bit whenever the song comes on, so I won't knock it too much. Good stuff.
No, I want you. I'm sick of being alone.
I have this bad habit of not following through with checking out the backlog of work from artists who have a song I really like, which is why I'm glad this commenter got me to listen to more Benet. This particular song has a sweet, organic vibe to it. I find this vibe absolutely adorable, pairing well with these delicate, lovelorn lyrics. Benet doesn't come across as the kind of artist who would exhaust herself for another hit, which is why I'm not confident that a song like this will get her much attention. Still, it's clear that there's some real talent here. It may take some time to grow on me, but for now, I find it perfectly pleasant. And now for the second of two Little Mix songs on the list, and the one I prefer ever so slightly more. Like I said, this type of girl group pop isn't normally my thing, but as with sweet melody, the listless elements of the verses are balanced out by a really catchy chorus. This one has also got some nice electropop beats during the chorus, making this all the more pleasant of a listen. At the same time though, the singing of the group members are all that more unremarkable, so yeah, you win some, you lose some, I guess. It's been nice revisiting this group nonetheless.
Da da da. Da da da.
I'm fully aware of how completely inane this is, and yet I've always found it so fascinating. This is like 80s synth-pop music stripped down to its absolute most basic element, with the chorus being little more than the mindless repetition of its title. It's as if Kraftwerk decided to make a Depeche Mode song and quit halfway through, or something. Besides all this, I've always enjoyed this one for its novelty value, and it's always fun to put on at parties as a silly troll song, so I'll give it that much.
I'm so bad at making the first move, but I promise that I'm better after that.
Oh, hey look, it's YouTuber Ben Eels. So out of all the songs featured in the video, including those from top-tier platinum-selling artists, this is probably the single song that I can point as being extremely relatable to how my own brain works. Being queer can be wonderful, but all the anxieties surrounding gay flirting, really one of the most frustrating feelings ever.
We both know you're looking great, but I don't wanna say the wrong thing just to find out that you're straight.
Ugh, why is this me? Eels' stripped-back performance is a bit shaky, but I think that only adds to the tension within these insecurities bared for the world to see. This is some really honest songwriting, and Eels has an ocean of potential in his view. Now go stream Heartworm, please.
I just wanna get this right.
Say keep your head up if you're not okay.
Now here's a critic darling that I personally have yet to really get into. Honestly, it's really not hard to see how the song hits so hard for many. These lyrics are pretty devastating, telling of lives torn apart by poverty and drug addiction, scenarios that are all too familiar for many alive today. The performance is raw and realistic, which I really admire. But I think this echoes an issue I have with a lot of pop punk, in that the instrumental isn't ambitious enough for it to match up with the power of the song's themes. Maybe I just needed to grow on me a bit. In any case, I really admire this, and I plan on checking out the rest of this album. Nicki Minaj had a lot of weird stuff in the early parts of her career, and I think a lot of it has aged better than a lot of people would be willing to give her credit for. Stupid Ho is a masterpiece, by the way. With this song in particular, the tight percussion rhythms are a perfect match for the turbulent energy of her flows. As is the case with a lot of Nicki songs, the chorus here is considerably weaker, but this is made up for her buck-wild breathiness at that breakdown. And again when she starts referencing Christmas music for no decipherable reason. This is the clearest example of a song throwing everything at a wall to see what sticks. Fortunately for Nicki, I think most of it does. A truly insane listening experience. Also known as one of the single most earwormy songs of all time. When I'm not in the right mood, this can come off as cloying, cutesy, and annoyingly repetitive. But when I'm in the right mood, this is absolutely radiant. This is 90s new age production taken to its highest potential, and the fact that it all translates to a pleasant pop song is pretty damn impressive. That bridge alone is a feat. It still would take a lot for me to add this onto any personal playlist, but there's also no denying its mesmerizing charm. I like it. Sometimes. Man, oh man, this song has frustrated me for years because Well, that intro kicks so much ass. Ozzy's all aboard yelp, that intense build-up, the guitar licks by the late great Randy Rhoads, all the stuff of genius. But then the tempo kicks up and the whole thing just delves into relative mediocrity. It's a bit frustrating because a whole better song is promised from that intro, which is not to say that the song is bad at all. It's a classic for sure, and very fun to sing along with. And even if the melody comes off a tad corny, it's saved by those arena anthem vibes and that midway guitar solo. It's just a tad underwhelming is all. But still, a coupling like Ozzy and Randy is hard to beat, so I'd say we all win in the end.
And you have this belief that you're gonna build what I don't need. And I know
I super duper dig churches. Well, actually, I super duper dig the Bones of What You Believe, while everything else I've heard from them has been a bit of a mixed bag. Fortunately, Leave a Trace lies on the good side of that mixed bag. The hooks aren't nearly as catchy as the group's best stuff, but the performance of the material is invigorating and very solid. Special kudos to Lauren Mayberry, who elevates the subpar chorus into something that actually sticks to the ear quite well. This may not be one of my most frequently played from the group, but it's still pretty damn good.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Of course, this song is nowadays inseparable from Quentin Tarantino's ironic placement in his work, but as the kind of song that it was intended to be in the first place, this isn't bad. Jerry Rafferty does lead vocals here, which is bizarre enough, but his Dylan satire delivery only makes it even stranger. I personally am a bigger fan of the instrumental, with those slide guitars, hand claps, and cowbell working in sweet, sweet harmony. It's a pretty well-deserved classic in the 70s one-hit wonder universe, one that's very playful and sure to bring up some good feelings in many a listener.
Is it cool?
Florence and the Machine are one of those groups that I think I admire and respect more than I actually enjoy listening to. The latter is probably just my personal taste, as this is a very well-constructed song. The 80s style guitars bring some genuine liveliness to the track, and Florence Welch, as usual, absolutely kills it. It's more on the angrier side than I'm used to hearing from the group, though that's a plus since I think they really knock it out of the park. Still, I think I should probably give it a few more listens for it to really sit with me. I gotta admit, when I first read of this being Tears for Fears' attempt at a feminist anthem, I was a little suspicious. This title and some of the lyrics are a bit hokey, but then again, each and every listen to this song has been a worthwhile one, if mainly for the group's signature atmospheric production, building to a lovely climax. Newcomer Oleta Adams also offers some very gorgeous complimentary vocals, and she would go on to a deservedly successful career of her own. Songs from the big chair level, this song does not reach, but it's pretty decent in its own right. I'd recommend it.
You fall in love, sing from the sky up above.
This was probably the first Björk song I ever heard, and let me tell ya, there are few worse ways to begin to get into her discography. I mean, this isn't bad, it's just like literally nothing else she's ever done, this being a pretty straightforward Broadway-style cover of a standard originally by Betty Hutton. The big band instrumental is very pleasant, and while Björk performs it all well with her own distinct, even strange flourishes, it's also pure 100% novelty. I don't often listen to it, but I can't argue with anyone else who loves it. Also, it's got a great Spike Jonze directed video, so I can't argue with that either. As a huge fan of both the Arch Android and Dirty Computer, Janelle Monáe's sophomore album Electric Lady has always been a little subpar in comparison, though still awesome. Queen is one of the album's strongest cuts, with Monáe brimming with so much infectious confidence, especially with her killer final verse. The legendary Erykah Badu also gives a distinctly poised performance, though I do think her voice could have been a bit more prominent on the mix. Overall, this isn't among my favorites from Janelle, but it's still Janelle, so I'll take this any day.
Toast for the jerk-offs. That'll never take work off.
I do like this one a lot, but there's no way this is among the best of the last decade, or even among Kanye's other work. His songwriting has certainly been better, as this song rambles for a bit longer than it really needs to. Nonetheless, the strength of that chorus drives everything forward, and Pusha T's verse is a huge stabilizing factor to the song as a whole. I also really love the super fuzzy vocalizations at the outro, as bizarre as they are. The song as a whole is pretty bizarre though, so if nothing else, I think I could admire the vision that went behind it all.
I'm on the pursuit of happiness, and I know everything.
I gotta admit, this song has always felt a bit stiff to me. Like, just not nearly as loose and chill as I'd like it to be. That's a minor complaint though, as everything here is totally solid. From the euphoric melody in the verses and chorus, to the cool late 2000s electropop production, to the solo by Rat-a-tat. Kid Cudi has never been on my radar much, to be honest. But this song, as well as his work on Kids with Ghost, ensure that he's one hell of a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, I like this a lot.
These mans, yeah, I got them all shook. Earthquake, yeah, I got them all shook.
And here's another artist I've never heard of before that y'all really want me to check out. Like Dessa, TK Maidza is another female rapper that I've never come across my radar before, though I enjoy the latter considerably more. Her bouncy hook is infectious as all hell, and her boastful flow is so sharp. The production is doing some really interesting things that often grab my attention even more. I would love to listen to a song of hers where her presence is more dominating, though as an introduction, this is quite good indeed. I know virtually nothing about the band Marianas Trench, but from the looks of it, this layered pop rock symphony is the opening track to their 2015 album of the same name. And while I can't help but feel like I'm getting only a small piece of the bigger picture here, there's also no denying the nice buildup of sound and emotion. I don't care for the singer's voice, but I do enjoy the exceedingly well-paced accumulation of cool synth sounds, progressive harmonies, and epic arena rock flourishes. I will always appreciate a good bit of epic storytelling unfolding in sections like this. If that's something you're into as well, you might find something to like here. The Veronicas really did just casually pop into the world, drop one of the biggest anthems of their scene, and then quietly leave, didn't they? So much of the song relies on the instrumental, with those classical string sounds melding wonderfully with the rest of the electroclash pounds and buzzes. The Veronicas carry along the vibe pretty well, even if they aren't particularly charismatic. Those verses sure are filled with a lot of words, and I'm not sure if I care to know what any of them are. But it's all about the mood for the most part anyway. This ain't bad, and it's even a little great. It's Disney Channel core teen pop at its most interesting, that's for sure.
The kingdom's on fire, the blood of a young messiah. I see sinners in a church, I see sinners in a...
How about a song where premier UK hip-hop artist Little Simz is a total baller for 6 minutes? I've grown to become such a huge fan of Simz, so this song was like candy for the ears. I gotta say though, I still haven't figured out if that layered orchestral backing is incredibly badass, or if it's the corniest thing I've ever heard. It's probably somewhere in between, but the song is all the better for it. And Simz's bars are still pretty impressive. This is some really great stuff, and I really can't wait until the new album drops. As much as I love whatever material from Rosalía I have listened to, I also must confess that I've regrettably never listened to an entire album from the Spanish singer. One listen to this lovely number, however, convinces me that I need to check out her early work immediately. This is apparently a cover of a flamenco standard, with which I'm not familiar, but it's also clear that the singer makes this whole song entirely her own. The sparse guitar backing is very pleasant, as flamenco often is, but the star of the show here is, of course, Rosalía herself. She's really got a set of pipes on her, and her ability to belt and modulate so seamlessly is nothing short of impressive. It's a lesson in great singing, taught by one of the brightest stars working today. Gorgeous stuff. So I'm a big fan of Tegan and Sara. Well, actually, I'm a big fan of The Con, a high school fave of mine. Their more recent turn to hard-hitting electropop may not compel me quite as much as their early stuff, but if this single is any indication, the duo still has a charm of their own. The melodic energy here is so damn infectious, and the chorus is honestly one of the plain coolest things they've ever done. Sure, it's obviously more tailored for casual radio play, but that isn't detrimental to their vision at all. If anything, it's given me yet another favorite of their catalog. So, thanks for that, ladies.
As I walk through the streets of my new city, my back feeling much better.
What an unusual little song. I've actually been a casual fan of Fun since around 2009, though I've never listened to their debut album. With that said, this sure left a good impression. It has a bit of a show tunes vibe to it, though weighed down by its instability and foreboding sense of anxiety. The string backing is gorgeous, but quite erratic, as if the song is about to teeter over at any given second. This is balanced by the potent finale, led by Nate Ruess's vocals that bring everything to a wonderful climax. Honestly, just a perfectly solid song. I'm really glad I discovered it, and now I have more incentive to go back and listen to Fun's debut. It kind of fascinates me that this, a mostly forgotten by non-fans album cut from 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, was the 8th most popular song request on the basis of votes. That's kinda cool. Anyway, this demonstrates all the best elements of this era of MCR, particularly with Gerard Way's firecracker vocals, as usual. I gotta say though, I never really realized just how gay the song is in retrospect. I probably should have picked that up in my youth, but whatever. This has held up very well over the passing of time, which I'm very pleased to see. By the way, did you know that the vocalist from The Used is on here? Cool stuff.
I think I can solve it. I can be your
Yves Tumor's Kerosene was one of my very favorite non-hits from last year. This one I liked a little less, but it's still very, very cool. This instrumental is absolutely wild, blending elements of psychedelia, glam rock, experimental jazz, and contemporary hip-hop in ways I've never quite heard before or since. Yves Tumor themselves is also really fucking cool, bringing some real Prince swagger to the mix like only they can. It's such a slick song overall, and reminds me of all those hypnagogic artsy rock bands that evolved in the early to mid 2010s, a sound that I love and miss dearly. Thank goodness then for this artist, for bringing it back when we needed it most. Great stuff.
Godsmack is how the wind feels on the face of Mike Winfield on his way home from the...
As much as I really like David Diggs, clipping is probably one of my biggest modern day blind spots, and this is one of the only songs I've listened to from them. With that said, yeah, this is the realest shit. Those dark foreboding synths, Diggs' Spitfire flow, the rich feverish storytelling, this is all just so good. At the same time though, it's also abundantly clear that I'm only taking in a small part of a much bigger story, which I guess is a complication of reviewing tracks like these. Still, it sure does make me want to listen to Clipping's debut immediately, so there's that. I know that this song probably got voted in off the power of its sampling in that one Flo Rida song, but I also like to think that my viewers genuinely just have that good taste. Brenda Russell has never been a particular adult contemporary fave of mine, but there's also no denying the delicate sweetness of this particular song. That chorus is rightfully iconic, and she sings the hell out of it. Considering that much of adult contemporary at this time lied in the totally unremarkable side of the pond, it's pretty impressive that Russell manages to take in so many musical trends from this scene and craft a pretty good song out of it all. It's all atmosphere, sure, but boy what an atmosphere it is. As someone who's listened to every Madonna album, this might be among my top 10 to 15 singles from the artist. The club groove is nice and poppy, and Madonna's vocals are pretty good considering her often limited range. It's just a nice, warm, optimistic song with a message that is sloppy, though not without good intention. With all that said, god damn it, I still can't listen to it without hearing Born This Way.
So if the time isn't
So points off for that, I guess. Still really good though.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending.
Before you say anything, yes, I am aware that I'm ranking this high, despite it not being mentioned in my best of 2020 at all. Don't think too hard about that. As someone who's been a fan of Bon Iver since high school, yet a relatively newer fan of Taylor, this song gives probably the finest example imaginable of both their talents working together. Their vocal chemistry is so great, and the chamber pop backing ramps up the emotional appeal even more. It's one of the single best tracks off of Folklore and has stood up exceptionally well over many months and multiple replays. It's not a song I could put on just any time, but for that particular soft, melancholy mood, I love it a lot. Even though I'm personally a Van Hagar person myself, I do concur that Van Halen had never again reached similar peaks as they had with their self-titled debut. Ain't Talking About Love is one of the obvious single-ready songs of the album, but it's a good one. The late Eddie Van Halen shreds like only he can throughout the bulk of the song, and the track as a whole carries on the all-too recognizable Van Halen flavor to a T. It may not kick as much ass as Running with the Devil or The Godly Eruption, but you won't see my fingers racing for the dial with this one anytime soon. Exquisite hard rock, for sure.
Give it to you, and even if I could, I wouldn't turn on you.
Back when Dua Lipa was still attempting to sell the world her stance as the queen of dance pop, this song was released, though kind of flew under the radar in the wake of her international monster hit, One Kiss. Still, I've always really liked this one. Its pace is organic, and the instrumental feels refreshingly dance floor ready. I especially really love this bit in the chorus.
This love has no ceiling, I cannot deny.
I can imagine the entire club getting totally hyped at this part, and that's just awesome. There's really nothing like good, unbridled, positive house music such as this. I love it.
So don't delay, act now, supplies are running out.
As fun as All Star is, I've always gravitated more toward this one. I have so much strong nostalgia for that groovy sax riff that introduces the song. And now it's clear that this is a shining example of that brief blip in the 90s wherein so many tried their hand at 60s style psychedelic pop. This song is one of the coolest successors of this. Smash Mouth is pure 90s kitsch, sure, but this one is a special brand of catchy that never gets old. It's such a crime that this never charted on the Hot 100, joining the ranks of Torn and Don't Speak as another 90s banger that got screwed over by Billboard's eligibility rules. This one's too cool for all that anyway. Okay, now this is more like it. I know I badmouthed her album in the previous Rena pick, but I should mention that the various directions this album takes are absolutely bonkers. From nu metal to 2000 era R&B, this is undoubtedly one of the most ambitious contemporary pop albums, and I've always loved that about it. Who's Gonna Save You Now is Rena's glam rock cut, and it's one of the record's highlights. Surrounded by synthetic crowd noise and some cool ass backup vocals, Rena gives a performance to remember. This whole track is pumped up with some absolute diva energy, and this feels like something Tina Turner would have put out in her 80s prime. It's a whole lot of fun, and one of the tracks from Sawayama I consistently return to. Give it a listen.
And I would do anything for love. I'd run.
While Bat Outta Hell is one of my favorite albums of the 70s, I've never given much thought about checking out the sequel album. I feel like I Do Anything for Love alone gives me anything I could ever need from Meatloaf and composer Jim Steinman's sequel work. It's got this thick symphonic sound typical of Steinman's works, and Meatloaf's huge voice carries it along quite well. Nonetheless, it's also not nearly as streamlined as anything from Bat Outta Hell. While the album version runs at a whopping 12-minute length, I'd probably most recommend the music video version of the song, which cuts a lot of extra fat while still keeping that epic Steinman vivacity. Also, did you know that this video was directed by Michael Bay? Pans out, honestly. I am a of a certain age, so it's basically impossible for me to listen to this song without the Night at the Roxbury connotations. Outside of that though, this basically demonstrates everything that is so endlessly fun about this brand of 90s Europop. I can indulge in these soaring hooks forever, as well as this deep voiced dude rapper who seems to be on every one of these songs. The sense of the song takes it just over the edge though, cementing this into the truest of dance club earworms. Such a classic. Is the entire reason why this song is ranked so high less on the contributions by the Human League themselves and almost entirely based around the immaculate production by legendary producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis? Maybe. I don't care though, this is 80s sophistopop done so right. I love the main melody and the verses, and especially this little bit leading into the chorus. It's an unusual choice pairing such a lush production style alongside a usually very mechanical group, but ultimately this added pulse turned out to be extremely beneficial. Super cool stuff. Take notes, Ozzy. This is how you make a metal song fit for popular radio airplay and have it sound great. I've always loved this song, but it's not until these most recent listens that I realized just how goofy it is. I mean, those Baroque pop keyboard licks alongside those heavy guitar chords is silly enough. But then there's Ronnie James Dio himself singing with that characteristically unbridled vigor that only Dio can accomplish. For a song about isolation and depression, it sounds pretty triumphant, though that is not at all to its detriment. This song kicks a lot of ass, and it's sure to remain in my rotation for many years to come. Alright, so more than anything with this special, I want to use this opportunity to be as honest as possible with my opinions on each one of these songs. With that said, this is one of my very favorite, most replayed minor pop hits of all the 2000s. Paris Hilton as a personality and artist has all the charisma of an empty paper bag, but somehow her smooth, breathy delivery really works here. The pseudo-reggae production, the chill mood. Yeah, this is the ultimate song for me to play when I want a guaranteed good time without thinking too hard about the music. As trashy as 2000s pop culture infamously is, it's really nice that a nice understated gem like this shines through amidst it all. Honestly, give it a chance.
Hey, I can be the answer. I'm ready to dance when the vamp up. Then when I hit that dip, get your camera.
Regardless of your feelings on Azealia Banks, and boy does she elicit feelings, there's no denying that she's supremely talented, and always was right off the bat. 212 simply oozes with Banks' personality. Her flow across these 4 or 5 unique sections is so sharp and distinct, and she absolutely kills across every one of these braggadocious turns. The music is pretty standard hip house, but it's awesome hip house, and it powers up Banks' spicy lines even more. This song marinates in its vulgarity, and it does so with an impressive level of depth and energy. A modern fucking classic, for sure. Gorillaz' album Demon Days has a lot of bright spots, and El Mañana is among them. While the group is known for their eccentric production and quirky guest spots, Damon Albarn instead tones things down a whole lot with this one. The end result is something of a ballad, deeply introspective and even mournful. There's a sense of deep loss at the very core of the song, which ties into the more textured, even hellish environments that could be found within the rest of Demon Days. Replete with some amazing melodies both from Albarn's vocals and the instrumental contributions, and we've got one of the finest works of the Gorillaz name. I just can't get enough of this one. I've been trying to decipher the appeal of They Might Be Giants for years now. Are they children's music? Nerd music? Parody music? Who knows? All I know is that I've always loved the effortless catchiness of Birdhouse in Your Soul, helped by the bouncy rhythm and absolutely adorable keyboard backing. I always tend to mentally group They Might Be Giants with Violent Femmes and Cake for reasons I can't quite place. It probably has to do with the nasally vocalists. But anyway, this is some real good fun, and that alone is quite alright with me.
you come from a land down under.
The fact that this song, of all songs, has managed to age as well as it has, never ceases to amuse me. It's a totally silly lampoon of Australian culture, legitimized by the actually Australian members of Men at Work. The jokes here are playful and oh so ridiculous.
He was 6'4" and full of muscle.
But what keeps me listening is the delightful flute instrumental and the sing-along nature of this whole song. It's a jam and a half, with a little something with which all walks of life from any time or place can have some fun. I am so happy this was suggested. This is exactly how you do a cover. And specifically, this is exactly how you do a Bulls on Parade cover. Denzel Curry has been one of my favorite rising artists for quite some time now, and as much as I admire the energy of Rage Against the Machine's original, Curry's more aggressive demeanor here adds just that much more weight to the song. This is tied together by the additional verse from Denzel, which cements the passionate, politically conscious themes here all the way to present day. Even now, I still find it hard to return to Rage's original. This cover just kicks so much ass, and it's bound to remain my go-to for some time to come.
It's murder on the dance floor, but you better not kill the groove.
It's pretty amazing that a song that came out in 2001 managed to accurately foretell 2020's fascination with new disco, as well as be just as good as the best of them. The disco groove of Murder on the Dance Floor is so great, with thudding bass, synthesized strings, and energetic guitars working together just like it were the 70s again. The melodies here, especially at the pre-chorus, are fantastically catchy, and Sophie Ellis-Bextor's charming performance helps bind it together. Altogether, it's one hell of a fascinating dance song. One of those exceptionally magnetic pop tunes from the start of the new millennium. I love it so much. Or what I'd like to call sad blank space. Seriously though, as I've made it clear in my 500 subscriber special, I absolutely fuck with melodrama. At this rate, I'm bound to review every single track off the album in no time. That probably will never happen though. Anyway, this isn't my favorite from the record, that would go to Greenlight or Liability, but there's no denying that it's up there in ranks alongside other legendary euphoric pop trips. Lord's anthemic performance is as rich and compelling as ever, and these lyrics make me feel all the feels. Oh, to be young and shameless once again. For many people, myself included, this was the first impression of the rising talent known as SZA, and boy what an impression it was. Primarily led by the hazy instrumental and SZA's gorgeous jazzy vocals, this is an intensely emotional bit of R&B soul that cuts to some all too real moments of vulnerability I think many people can relate to. It's brimming with lonely, melancholic vibes that are a whole mood and a half. It's among some of the very best of its kind, and it's no surprise that SZA has only blown up more and more from this point. And deservedly so, I think.
I don't mean to be a lot.
Sophie was taken from this world far too early, and her untimely death is nothing less than an enormous tragedy. While I got to admit that it took me quite a while for me to warm up to her early work, the release of It's Okay to Cry was what truly sold me on her artistry. These glassy synths are so much of her signature, but her understated vocals set along this wide-open mixing enhances the emotional appeal. It's like a Broadway-style ballad set within a technological utopia wherein we could all be as weird and queer and vulnerable as we desire, without the shackles of contemporary anxieties bringing us down. It's grown even more beautiful with time and fully demonstrates the genius of this unbelievable human we were all so fucking robbed of. Rest in power, Soph.
Now that ghost here in my head.
I will always love you. I'll love you forever, even when we're not want to get.
I revisited this song a hell of a lot in 2020, and with a year such as that one, it's not hard to see why. Here, Charlie trades in her usual chaotic pop vibes for something on the gloomier side of things. I love this delicate balance of robotic verses sung with distinct melodies that are just so pretty. The feelings she airs out here are so true to the experience of long-distance romance, even if they're often too painful to utter. It's so stunning just how accurately the song captures that very specific painful feeling of uncertainty that vibrated through the whole of 2020. It's a tad depressing, though also saddled with a particular elation that could only come from Charlie. Awesome stuff. Why, yes, I have listened to several early Modest Mouse albums, and yes, I know they have better stuff than this. But boy did this leave a great first impression for 12-year-old me. In particular, I really found Isaac Brock's voice just hilarious. Anyway, that bright guitar riff has become cemented into the legacy of 2000s-era radio rock, and for good reason, because it's so great. Over time, this has grown to become one of the quintessential keep a stiff upper lip tunes, though without being particularly obnoxious or preachy about it. It just rides on its wave for 3.5 minutes and invites us all to join along. I, for one, have not grown sick of it in the slightest. Alright, already. Somehow, it never really occurred to me that the musicians behind such nostalgic jams as Kids and Time to Pretend will still be churning out bops over 10 years later. This one is much darker than both of those aforementioned songs, thematically and sonically. I really love the deep buzzing synths of this. It sounds like a soundtrack to some 80s low-budget horror film that doesn't exist, but absolutely should. This atmosphere is so goth, and I just want to live in it forever. This song also demonstrates MGMT's knack for pop on the psychedelic end of things, twisted and turned by the kaleidoscope of retro pizzazz. These guys are sure to remain on my radar for quite some time to come. Definitely not the first to say this, but there was some genius level shit going on in Sophie's brain, in particular with this song. The sound and atmosphere here screams out the dirtiest, kinkiest sex within the human imagination, yet the way those Britney Spears-esque feminine vocals mesh with the absolute guttural growls completely turn this aesthetic around into something much more grotesque than conventionally sexy. Like with much of Sophie's music, this song subverts a lot about what music should sound and feel like. But at the end of the day, it simply hits so fucking hard, I can't help but love it. A masterpiece in queer noise.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall.
There's literally nothing I can say about this song that hasn't already been elucidated time and time again through the decades. Stevie Wonder is one of the all-time greatest, and this composition is slick as hell, definitely among his best. That bass line slaps just as hard as it did in 1971, and the horns add an extra layer of charm to the record. Wonder's performance is just plain awesome, but I specifically love the parts in the song where the chords shift down to some enticingly menacing level, climaxing at this masterful bit in the instrumental solo. Just superb all around. It's no surprise how this has passed the test of time with such flying colors.
That's when I come alive, like a schizo running wild. That's when I come.
It brings me nothing but pleasure to see just how much Janelle Monáe has blown up in recent years. I remember when she was still just breaking into the scene with the Arch Android, and I always felt like she was destined for true greatness. And this feeling was first felt with Come Alive, War of the Roses, my first Monáe song period. The jazzy psychobilly instrumental is peppy as all fuck, and an excellent complement to Monáe's rabid vocals, which leave one hell of an impression. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna go ahead and play this entire part in full, because I just think it's amazing and it gives me chills every time. God, I love this woman. Early Churches, and specifically their debut album The Bones of What You Believe, hold a very special place in my heart, as this was some of the most prominent music in my library around the time I first moved away from home. The Mother We Share in particular captures this feeling of naive liberation so well, a feeling I revisit every time I press play on the damn song. Lauren Mayberry's voice specifically drives this whole song for me. It's just so sweet and firm and comforting, certainly a fitting complement to the spacey synths and booming percussion. This chorus is so hooky and fantastic, one of the best to ever come from Churches. I will always be a huge fan.
Nasty, nasty boys. I don't mean nothing.
I know it's common knowledge that Michael Jackson ruled the 80s, but I've always much preferred Janet as a true monarch to that throne. Nasty is one of the finest cuts off her album Control, and this song has one of the very best Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis beats. Those funky synths hit so hard, serving the name of this track so well. And of course, Janet's striking charisma is a great compliment to the song, which could very well come off as embarrassing in lesser hands. It's a firm assertion of her agency and sexuality, performed with an attractive mastery that has so rarely been matched. Also, as an 80s banger, it just totally rocks. A classic in every sense of the word.
No, my first name ain't baby, it's
Oh, to be back in my first year of college again. Yeah, when it comes to MGMT, I tend to lean toward their more commercial-leaning poppier stuff, because I'm trash like that, I guess. For real though, everything about this sound is excellent. Those heavy-weighted drums, those psychedelic guitars, the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Overall though, this just reminds me of that ripe, wonderful time in the late aughts and early 10s where crops of these weird, earthy indie bands were a dime a dozen, and MGMT were more an example than an exception. At its core, this may be little more than a funny, stoned love song, but when it sounds this good, it's worthy of every bit of praise I can throw it. So, is it just me, or is that introductory sax riff one of the most beautiful sounds to ever exist? The rest of the song is great as well. I gotta admit that I was one of those fools back in the day who didn't have enormous expectations for Carly Rae Jepsen's career. This song alone blasts those expectations far and far away. The dense romantic atmosphere is so damn infectious, as is the way the song progresses so naturally and beautifully. This really is one of the pinnacle falling in love songs, up there with Be My Baby and Love on Top. It just puts me at so much peace with every listen, and God, just listen to it. It's so good. For, reasons, I find it a tad interesting that this was a song from Queen's Innuendo that people seem most interested to hear me cover, as opposed to, well, Innuendo. But no matter. This should surprise no one who's ever heard this song, but I consider this one of Queen's most shimmering achievements. The orchestral arrangement is very lovely, and the triumph of these lyrics cuts right to the core. Freddie Mercury gives one of his finest performances, which is stunning considering the extent of his illness, from which he would sadly succumb just a month after the single's release. This whole song is so huge and powerful, lifting me to the heavens with each and every listen. Just exquisite. If you ever decide to give this song a listen, do yourself a favor and go for the 7-minute album version. The abridged single release is great too, sure, but Jim Steinman is best experienced in the absolute largest of doses. He would have wanted nothing less. There's just absolutely no denying the kitschy charm of this one. It's melodramatic and so fucking theatrical, and Bonnie Tyler's signature belting is absolutely perfect for this entire vibe. The build-up in the verses leading up to that infamous chorus is some of the best that's ever been done, that's for sure. This is truly one of the best to ever come from Mr. Steinman, and it's sure to carry on his legacy for many more decades to come.
Black hole sun, won't you come?
While I've always been more of a Nirvana fanatic, I've nevertheless harbored a deep appreciation for Soundgarden, especially in recent years. Black Hole Sun is one of the masterpieces of the grunge era, taking full advantage of the genre's penchant for dark, dreary instrumentals and cranking it up to 11. The unsettling guitar chords and hallucinogenic production is oddly comforting, in a we're all gonna die someday kind of way. And then of course, there's a late Chris Cornell, whose strong, eerie vocals drive it all the way home. Truly a masterful gem of a song, and my love for it only grows stronger with each passing year. It's hard to pin down exactly why I've always loved this song as much as I have. I've always been huge into 80s new wave, sure, but this is pretty minimalist as far as the structure and lyrics are concerned. Something anyone could glance over when turning the radio dial. Nonetheless, this song is such a vibe, and it's a vibe that overtakes damn near anything else. The combination of these guitar and synth riffs are just gorgeous, and Mike Score's soaring vocal delivery works as yet another instrument in this lush production. It's a dreamy work of sonic art, and one that I could replay again and again and never get sick of. Easily one of the best songs to come from the 80s. I love it so much. Once again, while I've always resonated with Nirvana and Kurt Cobain's lethargic lyricism as an angst-ridden teen, it was in Courtney Love and Hole where I found a concrete feminine anger I so rarely saw in any other musical act. Live Through This is a really important album to me, and Violet may be one of the most hard-hitting opening tracks ever. It feels like the wildest, most unfiltered fuck you imaginable, yet through the grunge fury, the members of Hole keep everything miraculously tight and controlled. The end result is an unlikely anthem of sorts, like You Oughta Know cranked up a few dozen more degrees. In any case, I love the hell out of this, and it still sounds so good to me, even after all these years. I gotta emphasize here that the selection for this special totally blew my expectations out of the water, and I thank you all for helping make this happen. Arcade Fire's Funeral is one of my very favorite albums, and this track in particular has always been a standout. What we now call the millennial whoop has been so debased throughout the progression of popular music, but few songs could ever capture the lightning in a bottle created with the wordless vocalizations that make up this song's chorus. This is one of those rare, beautiful songs that portrays deep sadness with such masterful strokes it comes all the way back around to insightful and inspiring measures. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, and I'm really happy to have covered it here. As sad as this probably sounds, I still have not really stopped mourning the death of David Bowie. And as silly as I know it sounds, to me it really truly felt like he would be the one person who would outlive us all. Life on Mars contains one of the best choruses I've ever heard in my life, and it's certainly worth getting through the quieter piano bits, if only to relish in that lush melodrama. Bowie has always had such a knack for professing intense emotions in his music, and this is more than adequately shown along with surreal lyricism and grandiose instrumentals. This song is so goddamn cinematic, and one of the finest relics from one of the greatest who ever lived. This song will surely endure until the end of time. Y'all actually got me to top 2 subscriber special in a row with Kate Bush, didn't you? Well, dang. As you all know by now, Kate Bush is an absolute goddess, and if you need any more proof, here is yet another masterpiece. The anguish on display here is absolutely evocative, displayed in both the sumptuous layered production and Bush's unique vocalizations themselves. It's deeply feminist, though never heavy-handed and always grounded in a sense of painful reality. I've always imagined this song as a centerpiece to some grandiose musical production. The way the song is portrayed and performed is just so theatrical. I feel like recordings of it are limitations of its truest, lushest power. Nonetheless, in its current recorded state, it's still one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. Extraordinary stuff indeed. there we have it. Like I said at the start, this was a fantastic group of songs, and I thank everybody who took part in the suggesting and voting process to help make this happen. I will definitely be doing this again, and I hope you all can join me for whenever that happens. And once again, thanks so much to all the new subscribers who recently jumped on board. I hope I can meet your expectations. I'm Lyzette G, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye!
In the evening in the forest with a weasel with a teeth that bites so sharp when you're not looking in the evening.